Hey, this is Brooke, functional medicine dietitian specializing in fertility, and this is the Fertility Dietitian podcast, where I help you uncover the barriers that are preventing you from optimizing your fertility and teach you how to work with your body to finally take home a healthy baby. Each week, I will be diving into different topics on fertility and sharing my perspective on physiology, metabolic health, nutrition, and lifestyle approaches that have helped hundreds of couples get pregnant even after years of heartache. My goal is to empower you with the knowledge you need to take back control of your fertility. Happy listening. I'm chatting with one of my past clients, Lauren, today. Lauren and Joseph had been trying to conceive for about 6 years before investing in my private coaching program, which is the Master Your Fertility program. She had had a lap for endo about a year prior to reaching out and had done multiple IUIs that were unsuccessful. They were strongly considering adoption, even starting to fill out their paperwork for it, but felt that they wanted to give it another shot, kind of a one last ditch effort. We ended up working together for 4 months and they got their BFP right away, that big fat positive pregnancy test, and had a healthy baby boy. I then got the opportunity to support them in getting pregnant for baby number 2. We worked on prepping their bodies by doing follow-up testing and working together for a few short months before they got pregnant with number 2 right away. She is about halfway through her pregnancy when we chatted for this interview and feeling great. So keep listening to hear all of the details of Lauren's story. Hello, here we are today with one of my past clients, Lauren. She's here to share her story with us. Hi, Lauren. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast to share your story.
No problem. I'm really excited for this.
Awesome. So let's start by just having you give us a brief introduction of who Lauren is.
Sure. My name is Lauren. I live in Louisiana. I've been born and raised here. I live with my husband, Joseph, our 2 dogs, Des and Kylo, and our new son, who is going to be 2 in like a month. His name is Theo, and we've worked with Brooke when trying to conceive Theo and now through the second pregnancy. So I'm really excited to share more of our story.
Yeah. How far along are you currently with baby number 2?
We are 20 weeks. Our ultrasound, our big anatomy scan is actually tomorrow. So this is flying by a lot quicker than the first one. But yeah, we're halfway through our second pregnancy working with Brooke.
Awesome. So exciting. Okay, so let's take a step back and go to when we worked together initially, which was starting in January of 2022. And even before that, what did your fertility journey look like before you reached out to me?
So my husband and I had been trying to start our family for a total of probably 6 years. 4 of those years being working with different specialists and going through different fertility treatments. We did go through a few rounds of IUIs. We saw probably up to 10 different doctors and specialists, all saying different things. It was an incredibly overwhelming and frustrating time. And we kind of reached a point where we were starting to think about adoption. And we actually kind of started that process and even completed a family book. But during that time, something in me was still wondering, what if there is another opinion? I mean, after 6 years, it's really difficult to know, what is the answer to everything that's going on. And it's really easy to believe that it's your fault, it's your body's fault. And what else can you do about it? This is kind of like what the cards are given to you, and here's how to cope with it. And we didn't have the answer to that. So by the time we kind of went through the adoption route, we met with someone just to talk about the process, and we started our book. But like I said, something in me was still like, what if there's another person we could see? What if there's another opinion? Something in me like still wasn't settled with the answers that we had gotten. So I had found you, I think through Instagram was when I first found you out. I think it's easy to get to different referrals and different things of promotion through fertility. When you're in the infertility world, you get thrown a lot of things at you, but I'm so glad that you were one of the things that I had found. Something about you just seemed really, it just resonated with me. Like just being able to find out what works for your body. I think what's difficult is when you work with a lot of doctors and specialists, they can tell you a lot of answers that a lot of other patients get. And it's hard to get that really personalized care for some specialists. So when I saw that piece of it, I really wanted to give it a try and just see like, well, what if there is something different that we find out working with you? So we had reached out, talked about everything that we had tried so far, and yeah, started working together. And I know initially when we worked with you, we were eating healthy from our standards, from our perspective. We were doing all the right things, but there were still some things that we could work on, which was really interesting to learn. And that was one thing that I told myself is if we didn't get pregnant with working with you, at least we learned something about our bodies that we can change and just make things better for us. But when we did work with you, I think we got pregnant after four months of working during the first pregnancy. So yeah, it's been really great and worked out really well since then. So we had such a good experience that we reached out again and we wanted to try for baby number 2. So here we are.
Yeah. So exciting. So quite the journey of trying to conceive before reaching out. You said around 6 years, you were considering adoption at that point before reaching out. How do you feel like the Master Your Fertility program, which is my private coaching program for those of you listening, how do you feel like that program differed from working with other providers that you had worked with?
It was a night and day difference, completely different. I think what stands apart with your private program specifically is we got such quick answers when we just had simple questions. And also just, I cannot express the level of customized care that you get like in this program. You can really tell that you are so focused on each couple that you work with, and you're not just throwing out tests or throwing out recommendations out of, nowhere, different trends that you might see. Like you are focusing on each person and their own experience. And that is huge. I think that makes a big difference. And I think that's like what patients deserve. Like it's really hard to advocate for yourself when that's just like what you're used to when you're going in a doctor's office or certain specialists. And there are really great doctors and specialists out there that work really well with patients. But I think that one piece is really focusing on what that individual needs is so huge. And I think that that's such a big part of your program that we benefited from. I really felt like you were paying attention to what our body needed, and learning that it's like mind blowing. It's really cool to see and learn different things about how your body and how your body functions and how you can help it, like how you can help it thrive and the things that you can control. So I think those are the two things that mainly stand out, is how individualized the care is, and then also just ease of being able to communicate with you. I know we have like a chat that we go through within our program and through the app that we, if we have any questions at all during the process, we just ask it to you, and you're usually respond within 24 hours, a lot quicker than that usually. So we're able to kind of just stay in close communication and feel like someone is there whenever we need them.
Yes, I definitely feel like that is what everybody deserves when they're going through, focusing on their health in general, but definitely after not getting answers for so long and, having all of these questions that have been left unanswered. And I mean, I know you were so committed to tracking, your cycle and how you're feeling every day. And so me getting that information from you just helps me help you even more because we have data to work on as far as symptoms along the way. And I know initially when we did your deep dive back in, it would have been like the end of 2021 before we started your program, early 2022. We were working a lot on gut health. And I mean, we continued to work on gut health again this round too. But how do you feel like that piece of the puzzle, just like the gut health piece, changed your overall health and how you're feeling as a whole?
I feel like, yeah, definitely. I didn't experience a ton of symptoms during infertility. I think the biggest symptom I had was I did have a mild case of endometriosis, and we had talked about, I had some painful cycles, and that was just something that I gotten used to, but that had definitely improved whenever we made some changes. And gut health, I just feel like is something that it's definitely a hot topic, but I know I didn't know, what my gut needed and how to help it. So I think just learning all of that was really empowering. And I do think that the changes that we had made in your program definitely helped with my pregnancies. Thus far, I do feel like my pregnancy has been very positive, and it's been, if I did have any symptoms, they were very manageable. And I do truly believe that the changes that we had made played a huge part in that. I feel like my body was prepped like in a place where it could prepare for a baby, and it wasn't like some huge adjustment and needed an influx of all these hormones and like experiencing all these changes. I feel like my body was prepped and ready to go with the changes that we had made, and I will be forever grateful for for that. I know pregnancy symptoms can be very difficult, but I feel like I had some really positive pregnancy experiences, and I do believe it's because of those changes we made.
Awesome. That's good to hear. That definitely helps. That preconception support, we're not only helping you get pregnant, but it definitely helps you have that healthy pregnancy and limits symptoms overall, which is awesome. And your husband, Joseph, was also a big piece of this puzzle, as the male side always is in getting pregnant and having that healthy baby. And he was very committed to getting the testing and making the changes too. What do you feel like was the biggest change, either this time or the time before? What has been the biggest change that you guys have made in your day to day?
Oh gosh. I definitely feel like I realized the importance of gut health and the importance of the minerals that we're taking in. I know, like, when you had explained to us the way that we eat and the changes that we make, like, affect how we absorb the nutrients. You'd be eating healthy all day, and if you don't make some of these other changes, how beneficial can it be? So I think, like, one of the biggest ahas that we found out when working with you, both me and my husband, Joseph found out that he had that gluten sensitivity, and it was pretty severe. And that was a huge shock for us because he hadn't experienced any symptoms. So I think just, now we are eating pretty much gluten-free, and I am really prioritizing electrolyte intake and taking in my minerals and continuing to eat healthy. And it's always something that we prioritize. It's a huge thing that we've just always made sure was at the top of our list in our life is, we pay attention to the things that we eat, and we want to carry that down to our family as well. But I think the biggest change was knowing how important like gut health is. And that was one piece, I think, of the puzzle during our infertility journey that we didn't know a lot about. A lot of doctors and specialists don't ask, like, well, how's your gut health? when you're trying to conceive, it's a whole different world. And, they are specialized in medicine, and the things that they recommend is just totally different. So I think just realizing the importance of those healthy habits that I think that you had worked with us on and how that can impact healthy eating. And it's not just healthy eating alone. Like we thought we had that down. It's your body as a whole. And for me, I've always been fascinated about like how the body works and kind of what impacts everything as a whole. So I think that that's probably the biggest change that we've taken away as far as like our health and lifestyle goes, like since working with you.
Those are such good points. Like the gut is so foundational for like making sure that you're able to digest and absorb the nutrients out of the food that you're eating. So you can be eating the most perfect, quote unquote, perfect diet, right? And if your gut is not working for you, it's not digesting foods appropriately, or there's inflammation, there's bacterial imbalance in there, you're not going to get the nutrients out that you need. And those nutrients are so important for how we are not only creating energy, but supporting how the follicles being developed and the sperms being developed. And it's a huge area that impacts overall health and fertility in so many different ways. So, and like no shade on medical providers, because their tools and resources are very important, but they're definitely not getting down to the root cause of why your body is struggling to nourish fertility in the first place. And so you mentioned that Joseph learned that he had a big gluten intolerance, but didn't really have any symptoms prior to that. How did he end up feeling once he eliminated gluten?
He noticed a difference afterward. I know that in the past he had experienced headaches and had no idea where they would come from. And he kind of just thought like, oh, my dad gets headaches sometimes. Like it's just, it's just a thing I have to deal with. Like, and that's one big thing that probably the biggest thing that he noticed is like he rarely experiences headaches anymore. And now if he ever does, which is very rare, like he knows it's probably I'm dehydrated. Like I know I'm doing everything else. So I need to drink up my water intake, but he's felt great. I think his energy has definitely improved. He's a huge runner and loves to exercise. So he doesn't feel as drained kind of going through day to day with working out and also going to work and just doing day to day tasks. He feels a lot lighter, a lot better, and no more headaches, which has been really good.
Yeah, that's really common that sometimes there's symptoms that we're experiencing that aren't often related to like what's happening in the gut, for instance, or other inflammation in the body. And so again, like why that testing can be so helpful, just learning more about your body, more about how to support everything. And on the sperm side, it was likely impacting some sperm parameters on his end as well, in one way or another. So that is awesome that we were able to uncover those barriers and work with that piece of the fertility puzzle as well.
Yeah, I think he got a taste for, during the infertility journey, I think the woman gets a lot of pressure. Like maybe it's my body and maybe it's my fault. And I know that that's not like the correct way of thinking, but it's just so easy to fall into that. And I think for a second he was like, oh, there is something I can do to help with this. Like it's not just on the woman, it's totally a partnership thing. And so I'm so happy that he was with us in the whole process and we were able to not just learn about what my body is doing and how we can help it, but just how he can help with that piece as well. Because like we talked about, he had some things that he could work on to help with his body and his sperm. And it was really empowering to learn that it's both of us. It's not just on the woman's body creating the baby. So
Yeah, yes, that is a huge gap in the kind of conventional approach as well. And I remember that he had some testing done before we even started working together from one of your other providers, and there was low morphology, but your providers were like, oh, everything's just fine. It's good enough, basically. And when you work with me, like, we're looking at optimal levels on both sides because you're getting DNA. 50% of your DNA is coming from the male side, 50% from the female side. So once that egg is fertilized, like, the success of continued development absolutely is dependent on how those two pieces are coming together. So it's always mind-boggling to me where there's abnormal semen or sperm results and everything. Other providers say that everything is just fine on that end. So there's typically always room for improvement on both sides, I would say.
Yeah. And I think that's I think that's also a huge plus with working with you is just like, that's the way I think that we should all be thinking when it comes to this. It's like, always ask those questions. Like, there can be something that we can look at. Whenever you're working with these doctors and you receive that unexplained infertility diagnosis, it feels so disheartening. And that, who else are you supposed to go to? Like, if the doctors don't know what to do, like, what are you supposed to do? I mean, it's really empowering to learn how to think like, this is my body. There's got to be something else that we can look at. And, in some instances, obviously, like, assistance is needed, but your body was made to do this. Like, what can we learn about it? And I love the way that you think about just those questions. Cause I know I just messaged you during this pregnancy about some of the test results I received, and you asked a question. I was like, I didn't even think to ask that. Like, I should be asking these questions. And like, you're just such a great resource, just kind of like when you're in that process, when you are working with doctors and specialists, because it can be so, follow the routine. But whenever we're working with you, we just feel like there's always something that we can look into. And it's really comforting to have someone to work with you on that.
I love being that resource for you guys, and always am super excited to work with clients again when they're prepping for pregnancy number 2. Do you feel like prepping for baby number 2 was different than your first pregnancy?
It was similar, but in a few ways it was different. I knew that my body could do it, whereas the first time around, I was giving up, and this was my last, like, hey, like, this is our last thing that we're trying. I don't know if my body can do this. But now that I had gone through it before and prepping for my second pregnancy, I know for a fact that my body was made to do this. And that definitely made things a little bit easier the second time around. Obviously, with pregnancy, there's still a lot of just unknowns that happen and, anxieties that can happen. But I was definitely more comfortable, felt more empowered prepping for this time. And we got pregnant sooner. Got pregnant a lot quicker, which, I'm just wasn't expecting or wasn't used to, because it had just taken so long the first time. But it just goes to show, like, you put the work into helping support your body, and it's going to do what it was made to do. Like, it was a lot easier the second time around. And I'll go ahead and mention this too. One of the other ahas that we kind of found out with you that to me was definitely valuable was just the topic of, like, epigenetics. Like, the things that we're doing now, I mean, when you have a baby, you want to give your baby the best. You want to give them the best life, the best food, everything. And if you can impact that, before you get pregnant and while you're pregnant, like, why not do that? I know that what we're doing now is positively affecting our babies and will have a positive impact on their life as they grow up. It's like, why not do that? It just makes sense that's why we make the healthy choices that we do now. And that's why we prioritize that. And that's kind of just confirmed why working with you was just the right decision. Why not learn more about your body and how you can not only positively affect your own body, but for your family, I think that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I think once you learn about that piece of epigenetics and how you're able to change genetic expression. So what Lauren is talking about when she says epigenetics is that we are all given a set of genetics essentially, but the way that they're expressed can actually be changed based on our exposures. So exposures like what we are eating or how we are sleeping or how we're managing our stress are going to impact turning on favorable genes and turning off not so favorable genes. Or you can think of it as like disease promoting or almost like fertility promoting or fertility like barriers that are these genes can be creating in one way or another. So nutrition is so huge for epigenetics because literally vitamins and minerals are almost like a key to change over how those genetics are being expressed. So if you're deficient in certain nutrients or your gut health is providing barriers or contributing to barriers of how you're using those nutrients, maybe your cells are inflamed in one way or another, so you're not able to create energy or use the minerals and vitamins appropriately. Like your genetics are going to kind of default to, I guess, what you were born with or what you were exposed to all the way back to when your grandmother was pregnant with your mother. So not to get too much in the weeds here, but your epigenetics are based on your grandmother's health because your mother had her eggs when she was inside the womb of your grandmother. So we can trace it back generations of exposures. And I'm not saying like it's your grandmother's fault or your mother's fault. It's just everything, all of these exposures, and especially in our modern day world, have changed so drastically over the last 50 years. It can make it a lot harder for us today in this generation to turn on those good genes and support fertility moving forward. But we do have the opportunity to do it for our children moving forward, especially if we're able to change what we're doing pre-conception to change our own epigenetics. Then during pregnancy, it's a lot easier. Obviously, focusing on your exposures during pregnancy makes a difference. And then really through that first 2 years of your child's life. So pre-conception all the way through the first 2 years of your child's life impacts lifelong health of that child. And obviously they can shift their epigenetics into less favorable codes as well based on their exposures, but it's going to be a lot easier for them to keep those more favorable codes, if you will, turned on. So if anybody has any questions on any of that, don't hesitate to drop comments below in the podcast, reach out to me on Instagram DMs or anything. But this is such an important piece because we do have an impact on it. And preconception health is like, this is really the reason why I became so passionate about it also. And then obviously, as I started working with couples and seeing the changes in the trajectory of their fertility outcomes, I mean, it's a big deal. So I agree. Why wouldn't you focus on that preconception health, set your body up for the best outcomes for your babies to have the best outcomes possible? And if this is the first time that you're hearing any of this, like, don't beat yourself up. We can only do the best we can with the information that we have. So if you already have children experiencing secondary infertility, or maybe you've gone through years of infertility, as Lauren and Joseph did before we worked together, like, all we can do is take this new information and do the best we can with that moving forward. So yes, hot topic, epigenetics there.
I know, I didn't even know about it until after we worked with you, and that piece was just so mind-blowing to me. So I feel like that's not only helping yourself, but just helping your future family, and you can have some control in that. So I think it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's important for, I mean, the female side definitely impacts it, and the male side impacts it just as much because they are providing 50% of the DNA. So when you have a morphology marker or motility marker on the sperm side that is subpar, it's giving you information on the genetics that you're going to be passing on to your future tiny human. So don't ignore it. Don't let other providers tell you, oh, it's fine or it's good enough. If you can improve it, which sperm parameters are pretty easy to improve. Easy in the sense that it doesn't take much time. It does require commitment and changes to nutrition and lifestyle, but it can be quick, like 3 months quick. And I think Lauren and Joseph are a really good indication of that, because for their first time working together, I presented protocol recommendations for them in January of 2022, and they were pregnant by May. So that 3 to 4 months time frame really made that positive difference for them after 6 years of trying to conceive before that. And then this next time, trying to conceive baby number 2, we started working together in May. You were pregnant by August. Were you trying to conceive right away? I forget.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So pretty quick that time around.
Very quick.
Too.
Yes.
Yes. So excited for you to continue growing your family. Any advice that you might have for other women or couples that were maybe in a similar place that you were prior to working with me?
Oh my gosh. First off, I just want to acknowledge that it is such a difficult phase of life to be in when you are trying to figure out, what's going on with your body and seeing all these different people and asking questions and maybe not getting answers. I just want to acknowledge that you are not alone. Like it can be such a difficult time, and it can feel so isolating, and it can be so easy to put yourself down and just think that something is wrong with you. And I just want to acknowledge that that's really not the case. There are resources out there. And if you are seeing a doctor or specialist and getting answers that just doesn't resonate with you, like, listen to that. I think that that's probably the biggest thing, because, something in me was still telling me, like, I need to look at some other options, or I need to look into maybe a different type of specialist. And there's no harm in doing that. I think just listening to what your gut says is so important. You have that for a reason. Your body and your mind is telling you that. And I think it's for a reason. So if you are kind of unsure where to go, I highly recommend giving Brooke a try. Her care is really unlike what you're going to be seeing with other doctors. It is so individualized, and I will never take that for granted. Brooke and I feel like friends now. I feel like I message her a lot in the app, and it's just so comforting to know that someone is always there for you. When you're working with a doctor, sometimes it can be very difficult to get in touch with them, or it can take a long time to get in touch with them. And sometimes you're not speaking to the same person. So that this type of care is so, I feel like, needed with especially couples going through infertility. It's so easy to get caught up in what the doctor says and not question it more and advocate for your health a little bit more. So if you're having that gut feeling, or if you're just unsure what to do, give Brooke a try. She really does have a lot of great resources out there. Like I said, I learned about epigenetics after the fact, working with her. So she has a lot of really amazing resources online. But working with her has been truly a phenomenal experience, learning about myself, learning about my body, and just getting pregnant was like the cherry on top. So yeah, listen to your gut and listen to your body, and don't be afraid to dig deeper and ask questions.
I love that. I mean, our intuition is something I think we tend to override a lot of the time. But if you tap into that, and if something is not sitting right with you, as Lauren mentioned with other providers, it's okay to add to your support team. It doesn't mean that you don't have to take current providers, insight in also, and all sorts of providers can be working together in tandem to give you best outcomes. It definitely doesn't have to be black and white, like you're going in one direction or the other. I work all the time with fertility clinics and the doctors in them as well. We might not always agree on certain things, but that can also be the beauty. Like I'm here to help support you and make decisions that are best for your body. I'll never tell you which direction to go, but I definitely strongly encourage you to tap into that intuition, and it will tell you what is best for you and which direction to go. But there are so many gaps in the conventional approach. If you're feeling intuitively like there is more to look for or another way to support your body, even if you do continue down the road of reproductive technology in tandem, it is going to influence how you respond to additional care in the fertility world. So any hormones that you may be given, and it's definitely going to impact your health, the health of you, the health of your pregnancy, and the lifelong health of your future tiny human. So you really don't have much to lose in adding on a functional approach to fertility as well.
Yeah, it's easy to, I'll just add to that real quick, because over 6 years of our infertility journey, seeing a lot of different specialists, you only learn more and more what you as a patient deserve. Some of these doctors we still speak with and have been really great resources for us. It's just a different kind of resource. So I know like seeing someone new or seeing a new specialist can feel defeating sometimes, as you feel like you might be starting over or like re-explaining your situation and experiences and what you've gone through to get those answers. But I do encourage you to just look at it as like a learning experience, like seeing, you never know who you might be adding to your care team. As Brooke mentioned, I've got a few people now that we've built up over the years that now we see, pre-pregnancy, during pregnancy, and post-pregnancy. And it's only just a learning experience, and there's really nothing you can lose, as she mentioned, besides like learning more about yourself and kind of like what you deserve as a patient going through this phase of your life.
I love that you came and shared everything about us working together. And this pregnancy is well on its way. Are you having another boy, right?
Having another boy, yep. Yes. We're excited for the chaos.
So exciting. Awesome. And awesome to hear that you've had a pretty easy pregnancy thus far. So hope that continues. What would you tell other women or couples that might be on the fence of the investment piece of the program?
Yeah, that was a big piece in deciding whether we'd work together. But I think for us, our health is worth it. That's kind of what we had in mind. I know like when you're going through the infertility journey, it can be quite expensive. If you go through surgeries and just so many different things. But whenever we were deciding if we should work together, that was ultimately our decision, is our health worth this? Is a future baby or the potential of a future baby worth this? And for us, 1,000%. We wanted to, like I mentioned earlier, even if we didn't get pregnant, at least we learned something about our health that we can apply to regardless, if we were able to have children or not. But it worked out. It worked out for the better, and we were able to learn about our body and have a healthy baby and a healthy pregnancy. And I would just keep that in mind when you're thinking about that piece. Is, do you feel like you're learning more about yourself and just about your health? Is it worth that? Is it worth getting the answers that you've longed for up to this point? Because you're going to find something. Working with Brooke, you'll find something that you can work on and improve on. And to me, that's worth it.
Absolutely. Your health is worth it. The health of your future baby is worth it. And yes, I have never worked with a couple where we have not found anything, even if they feel like, a lot of my couples do come to me feeling like they've tried everything, like they're eating healthy, and living that healthy lifestyle. And like elements are, but it might not be the healthy lifestyle for them, or it might not be matching with what their body needs. So getting that additional testing, having another set of eyes on it, and not trying to nitpick from other accounts or there's resources online and Google, like it's so hard to put together for yourself without having the deeper dive. The right support team goes a really long ways in your outcomes.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for being here, Lauren, and sharing your story. I wish you all the best on this second pregnancy, and I look forward to continuing to support you through that.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I hope everyone listening is able to get something from this, because I know whenever I first worked with Brooke, I would have loved to hear more of, other people's experiences and, feeling a little less isolated and learning more about their process. So thank you so much for creating the podcast and for having me. I think it's going to have a really cool impact.
I agree. I'm super excited to be able to share stories this way and hope that it helps many. I know it will. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fertility Dietitian podcast. If you enjoyed it, please leave a review to let me know what topics you want more of or less of. If you want to keep learning, subscribe at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out my website for more info on my private coaching program, Master Your Fertility, or my membership community, Fertility Blueprint. And don't forget my digital store. Come say hi on YouTube and Instagram. See you in the next episode.